Matt Levi Investigates, brought to you in part as a community service by First Hawaiian Bank. Gasco, Hawaii's clean energy upgrade. Metal Gold Dairies, the dairy that truly cares about Hawaii. BEI, Hawaii's largest distributor of industrial chemicals, fertilizers, and agricultural products. HMSA, to keep our community informed and engaged, working together for positive change. IBEW Local 1186, lighting your path to the future. Kamehameha Schools, celebrating 125 years. For Hawaii's people, for Hawaii. And Hawaiian Electric Company, supporting a clean energy future for Hawaii.
You get that one ball over there. Come on.
Get out of there.
Over there, you get the sandy ball. Come on.
Yeah.
We take for granted when we tuck our children in bed at night that our children are safe, but that's not true of all children in the state of Hawaii. There are children that will be tucked in at night on a park bench or on a towel on a beach, in the back seat of their car.
Sometimes I'm scared to go to sleep because the wind, it sounds like ghosts, yeah. And the dogs, they bark. And one day my dog, they barked at something and I saw a shadow pass. And we don't have any locks or anything that will help us put our dogs. And I'm scared that somebody might just walk in and raid the whole camp.
Tonight, the children, the innocent victims of homelessness in Hawaii, they face serious risks that other children do not, from medical to emotional to issues of education and safety. Our story is not about the homeless who are able but choose not to work, or those incapable of functioning in society because of drug abuse or mental illness. They are the most visible, but they are the minority. Ours is a story less about blame and more about understanding, so that attitudes toward the homeless might change, and with that change will come fewer of the number of the most defenseless, the children of the homeless. An accurate count of Hawaii's homeless population is difficult because homeless situations can change daily, and meaningful communication with many of those to be counted is unreliable at best. But some figures now place the state's homeless population at more than 14,000. About 5,000 of those are children. Half of those are infants and toddlers. Perhaps surprisingly, state figures show the largest numbers of Hawaii homeless are adult Caucasian men. The highest number of homeless families with children are split almost equally between Micronesians and Hawaiians. The federal government identifies different categories of homeless. The most visible, yet the smallest number, are the chronic homeless, those with disabling conditions, both physical and mental, who have been homeless for a year or who have been homeless at least 4 separate times in the past 3 years. Generally, the chronic homeless sleep in places not meant for human habitation, streets, sidewalks, and parks. Unsheltered homeless also sleep in unfit places, the streets, parked cars, and abandoned buildings, but have no recognized disability. Finally, those in shelters or transitional housing, the sheltered homeless. We see the sheltered homeless in places such as the Next Step Project shelter, located in the shadow of Honolulu's financial district. Overall responsibility for the shelter lies with the Waikiki Health Center's Darlene Hine.
As a mother, sometimes it must almost break your heart when you see some of these kids. Tell me a little about that. How deeply does it affect you?
You know, you want so desperately to make it better, to improve the circumstances. We have a group of people who work here who work really hard every day, and you want to really take that mom and that child and, you know, figure out how can I make this better.
The visibility of the chronic and unsheltered homeless creates a range of emotions, from sympathy to pity to disgust, from a community which for the most part watches them from afar and tries to avoid them. What is not generally known is that more than half of sheltered or unsheltered homeless Hawaii households have one or more parents who work.
I think what frustrates me about the community is that they don't have an understanding. They don't understand what it's like to be homeless, what it's like to live in a shelter, how difficult it is to get out of that circumstance and situations.
Olivia, a single mother of two, was married and working 2 jobs. She lost her position at the Department of Education, then her job at a transitional shelter in Waianae. Before long, the financial strain led to divorce and eventually homelessness. She made it to a transitional shelter, but before that, Olivia and her 2 children slept in her car, parked wherever she felt it was safe.
I'd park at different places out on the Waianae coast. The last place that I parked was at Makaha Resort.
What could possibly go through your mind when you're in your car sleeping? What did you think the future would hold? What did you think about what was going on with your life?
I knew that it was temporary. I knew that I was gonna be able to find something better for my kids, that it was just temporary. So I wasn't too much worried about what the future was gonna look like. But every night, you sleep uneasy, try to keep your eyes open, just to make sure that nobody comes around. You'd rather have the kids go to sleep instead of yourself.
Homeless children are sick 4 times more often than other children. They have more respiratory infections, ear infections, and gastrointestinal problems. They go hungry at twice the rate of non-homeless children. Also of major concern is the exposure to violence.
You're in contact with more people who have mental health problems, more people who have substance abuse problems. There's just more social problems that they have to deal with every day.
They're traumatized to a certain extent.
Yeah, I definitely think that depending on the circumstances and the parents and where they're staying, they can be traumatized. And even if they're not traumatized, I think the effect of it is can last a lifetime.
For Hilo designer Sig Zane, things of value take time and care. That's why he still hand cuts every design and tends to his hapu'u patch, which one day will inspire his latest creation. Sig's health plan is HMSA because trust is earned over time.
At Sig Zane Designs, we choose HMSA.
HMSA, trusted for generations.
My grandfather started working for Metagold back in 1923. My dad retired from Metagold after 30 years of service. I remember Dad telling me and my brother Matt about the importance of integrity and dedication, especially when it came to work. He believed that's what makes a person stronger. I guess you could say that had a big influence on me. I'm Frank Gaspar Jr., and this is Metagold and me. 3 generations and counting.
When I grow up, I'll pay $20 for a gallon of gas. It'll cost a month's salary just to run my air conditioner. Taking a hot shower will be a luxury.
As the price of imported oil rises, the burden gets costlier for our children. Let's continue to invest in local, renewable resources to help reach Hawaii's goal of 70% clean energy by 2030.
The payoff will come for future generations like ours.
Experts agree the quicker the homeless try to get off the street or out of the shelters, the more likely they are to avoid long-term homelessness. Darshan was renting a home in Makaha, but the property was sold, and she says the new landlord wanted first and last month's rent and a deposit. She was unable to come up with the sum of money. Darshan was evicted. She has been on the beach for 10 years now. She has 5 children and a 6th on the way.
They just have no choice, I guess, yeah. And it's not their fault.
You feel badly about that?
Yeah.
Tell me.
Because I can't provide for them.
What would you like to give them that they don't have?
A better life. A better place to stay, but I can't.
Did you tell your mom that you don't want to live there? Did you ever tell her that?
Yeah.
What do you tell her?
Like, Mom, can we live somewhere else?
Why do you want to live somewhere else?
Because it's spooky sometimes.
You get scared. What scares you?
Shadows.
For Charmaine, temporary homelessness was the best option for her and her children. She chose to move into a shelter to escape domestic abuse.
It was just the fact that I ended up in another abusive relationship, and I saw it as a cycle. My kids has seen it. I don't want my boys to become abusive, and I don't want my girls to be abused. So I made the choice to move here. I have 5 children.
Both Charmaine and her son Hector hope that by telling their story, those critical of the homeless might have more compassion, as she and Hector try to make a better life for themselves.
You know, we're human. We all are. I just hope that they can have some kind of compassion. Not to necessarily help them, you know, give them money or food, but just to care, to know their story, or, you know, to know that maybe they're in there because of whatever they've been through. Most people, they work hard for their money, and I can understand that. But I feel like you have to get to know some of these people. They stereotype homeless people or categorize them as, oh, they were on drugs or they're lazy. But not everyone is like that.
Why do you think people have such strong opinions about people who live in shelters or are homeless? Why do you think that is?
Maybe because they have their own house and that we don't.
Michelle had worked as a welder before a car accident put her on welfare. She told us an incorrectly filled out disability form led to a loss of her benefits. She was in an emergency shelter, but found the rules and regulations too restricting. So Michelle moved her family to the beach.
I gave them one house like that, but I told them that we cannot get one house right now because we stand up for our rights of how we should be treated. And we wasn't treated well in a shelter, or we shouldn't even be here.
Michelle seems to have adapted to life on the beach, but is still very aware of the dangers her children face, especially 12-year-old Melia.
What are the issues that you think about?
Rape. I think about guys coming and trying to take advantage of my daughter. The people that she trusting, calling uncle, it's not her uncle, you know what I mean? It's like stuff like that. And they're trying to, because there's a lot of people down here, it's like not good.
Drug use has created much of the homeless problem. Cheryl admits that drugs did contribute to her problems, but were not the sole reason for her homelessness. With 3 children and no childcare, she felt she had to quit her job. Shortly after that, her husband lost his job, which led to infighting and eventually a divorce, and then homelessness.
At first I thought it was gonna be like easy, like I got this. 2 months I'd be off. Took a little longer. I actually was on for 5 months, but it took the cake when, I don't remember if you guys remember, like a couple of years ago, in March, there was like a whole month of rain and storm, and that's when I was homeless. And it just rained, and I kept buying tent after tent, because our tent would fill up with like water, like an inch of water every time. And it took the cake when my kids were screaming, like, because the waves came up, it was like really stormy. And half of the beach, all of their stuff went on the road.
In Hawaii, there's one name that's synonymous with keeping our islands green and growing: Gaviota. It's been that way since 1890. Gaviota brand fertilizer is made especially for Hawaii's plants and soils and blended for reliable, versatile, complete performance. And now we're proud to announce new Gaviota Green, a natural compost-based fertilizer that's safe for plants, people, and the environment. Keep your green growing strong with Gaviota brand fertilizer from BI Hawaii.
One Hawaii organization spends millions to support public education.
Empowering public charter schools with funding and guidance.
Offering workshops that help me support my child's learning.
And improving literacy in hundreds of classrooms statewide.
In fact, Kamehameha Schools is the state's largest private contributor to public education. It's an investment in Hawaii's future.
In my school.
In our communities.
For us all.
My grandfather started working for Medigold back in 1923. My dad retired from Medigold after 30 years of service. I remember Dad telling me and my brother Matt about the importance of integrity and dedication, especially when it came to work. He believed that's what makes a person stronger. I guess you could say that had a big influence on me. I'm Frank Gaspar Jr., and this is Medigold and me. 3 generations and counting.
With just a glance, many of the perils facing homeless children are obvious. The likelihood of facing true hunger and health and safety concerns non-homeless could never imagine. But it is the stigma of homelessness that cuts deeply into the emotional state of the children. The children of the homeless we spoke to told us they face embarrassment and ridicule on an almost daily basis at school and at play.
You've agreed to talk to me, but you don't want your face on camera. Why is that?
A lot of people treat me different because I'm homeless. Like, a lot of people don't like to hang with me, I guess.
So who do you hang with at school, at high school?
Some other people that used to be homeless, but they already got their apartments and things.
In school, do the kids know that you live in a shelter?
Only my friends, like one person, and then she spread it out to my other friends.
What did she tell them?
She told them that I'm homeless.
How did that make you feel?
It made me sad because I don't want her to say that I'm homeless, like I'm living on a road. I want her to just say I live in a shelter.
What do you tell them when they ask you where you live?
My auntie's house.
Yeah, and you live in a house, right? That's what you tell them. Why do you think that you need to lie about it?
So they don't make fun of me.
When they make fun of you, how does that make you feel?
Sad.
But do the kids tease you at all because you're homeless, or?
Yeah, sometimes.
What do they say?
They say like, you know, your mama jokes? I saw Amelia in the trash can, I threw a rock by the trash can, she said who's knocking, like that kind. And sometimes they called me bad names like stupid or ugly.
Tell me honestly now, do you hide the fact from your friends that you live in a shelter?
Yeah.
How come?
Well, I don't really like when people judge me, like where I live. Like people judge me like when they first see me by my size. It's not right. Like I don't like when people judge me like that. So that's like the main reason why I keep it from them.
In addition to finding a safe place to sleep and enough food to eat, children of the homeless also face greater challenges when it comes to education, such as tardiness, absenteeism, or even finding an adequate place to study. Alice Greenwood, formerly homeless herself, has become an advocate for the homeless and has made an impact in the education of homeless children.
I filed a lawsuit on behalf of our children, our homeless children, because what they were going through, what I was going through just to get my son to school. And when I seen a lot of the children, they were hungry.
Greenwood was part of a lawsuit filed on behalf of homeless parents and children of Hawaii, charging state officials with violating the federal McKinney-Vento Act, ignoring the legal obligation to provide homeless children with equal access to free and appropriate public education and services non-homeless children have access to, such as transportation to school. Cassandra Bennett is the Department of Education's new homeless coordinator.
What we're required to do is make sure that all homeless children in this state receive services, that they receive the same education that any other child in the state of Hawaii receives. So the frustrating part is just the mobility of the children as they move from one school to another school. They are entitled by law to to stay in the school of origin, which is the school in which they were last homeless.
Homelessness can happen overnight, and it is difficult to take the steps to get out.
It's very difficult because I don't think people understand what it's like to be in a shelter and live in a shelter, and how difficult it is just to even get those small things that you need, how you get, you know, all of your children's birth certificates and all the things, social security cards, and all the things that you need just to make basic applications. And everything is a step, and it's a lot of work. And if you don't have good credit, if you don't have good housing references, if you've only been employed a short period of time.
It is difficult, but not impossible. Many homeless don't know what help is available to them. They need to be made aware of what services there are, but they must also take the initiative and take advantage of those services. Cheryl and Olivia did.
It makes me feel good about myself, but it's more for the kids, for my kids. I want them to see that mommy's working, and when I get older, I'm gonna have to have a job also, because I don't want them to see mommy's at home, you know, she stays home, she's on welfare. Maybe I can do that also when I get older. Kind of want them to see and learn from that.
Both women have climbed out of homelessness and now work at Partners in Development, which serves Hawaiian communities with Native Hawaiian values through early education, traveling preschools, youth mentoring, and foster care, among other critical services. Olivia is a teacher's aide, and Cheryl is an infant and toddler's teacher. Cheryl has stopped using drugs and moved her family into a home.
Are you doing this for yourself or your kids?
Both. I'm doing it for both. Because if I can do it for myself and build a foundation for myself, then my kids will follow in. Yeah, that's the way I see it.
If we can get the family involved and engaged, you know, mostly every parent wants better for their child than for themselves. So we often found that our approach to working with families in need is that if we can have them circle around their child, the greater is the chances of that they might want to seek out services to get off the beach or to get out of their cars and to seek shelter.
One Hawaii organization spends millions to support public education.
Empowering public charter schools with funding and guidance.
Offering workshops that help me support my child's learning.
And improving literacy in hundreds of classrooms statewide.
In fact, Kamehameha Schools is the state's largest private contributor to public education. It's an investment in Hawaii's future.
In my school.
In our communities.
For us all.
In Hawaii, there's one name that's synonymous with keeping our islands green and growing: Gaviota. It's been that way since 1890. Gaviota brand fertilizer is made especially for Hawaii's plants and soils and blended for reliable, versatile, complete performance. And now we're proud to announce new Gaviota Green, a natural compost-based fertilizer that's safe for plants, people, and the environment. Keep your green growing strong with Gaviota brand fertilizer from BI Hawaii.
When Ralo Schurenbrand makes one of his Koa guitars, he builds it to last, because he knows it'll be played and passed down for generations. Ralo's health plan is HMSA, because no other health plan has served Hawaii longer. They've stood the test of time.
I'm Ralo Schurenbrand. Making guitars is my passion. HMSA is my plan.
HMSA, trusted for generations.
When I grow up, I'll pay $20 for a gallon of gas. It'll cost a month's salary just to run my air conditioner. Taking a hot shower will be a luxury.
As the price of imported oil rises, the burden gets costlier for our children. Let's continue to invest in local, renewable resources to help reach Hawaii's goal of 70% clean energy by 2030.
The payoff will come for future generations like ours.
The children of the homeless told us of their need to fit in and be like non-homeless kids. They do not want us to feel sorry for them.
they're not really that different from the people. They're same like them. They're people with just no house. That doesn't change who they are. And if you don't know someone's story, you can't really judge them.
But you're no different than anyone else.
Yeah. We're all the same. It's just we have less money than the people who do have lots.
And when asked what they want to do when they grow up, homeless children told us again and again they want to help others in need.
What do you want to be when you finish high school?
I want to get a scholarship to be a pediatrician.
You want to work with kids as a nurse or a doctor?
Yeah, because I got close to my sisters and I like little kids.
What do you want to do when you grow up?
I want to help others.
Do you want to help kids who are homeless? Why is that so important to you?
So they don't get hurt.
What do you want to do when you grow up?
Be a cheerleader than a judge.
When I go to high school, I really want to graduate and go to college. And then when I graduate from college, I want to get my master's degree.
Tell me what Rosemary will be doing when she's grown up.
Rosemary would be taking care of people that live in the shelter, and she would be a nurse to help other people out in case they're hurt.
To some, all homeless put themselves in their predicament and deserve no help if they won't help themselves. But even taking that view, there should be no argument that the homeless children are not responsible for what has happened to them. Cold, sick, hungry, unsheltered children with no safe place to sleep should not be cast aside, but should be given support and hope. If you would like to help, please consider contacting groups such as the Next Step Project and the Institute for Human Services.
Change can come. There can be a positive future for the young victims now on the outside looking in. Hawaii's Children of the Homeless. Thank you for joining us. I'm Matt Levi. Good night.
Matt Levi Investigates, brought to you in part as a community service by First Hawaiian Bank. Gasco, Hawaii's clean energy upgrade. Metal Gold Dairies, the dairy that truly cares about Hawaii. BEI, Hawaii's largest distributor of industrial chemicals, fertilizers, and agricultural products. HMSA, to keep our community informed and engaged, working together for positive change. IBEW Local 1186, lighting your path to the future. Kamehameha Schools, celebrating 125 years. For Hawaii's people, for Hawaii. And Hawaiian Electric Company, supporting a clean energy future for Hawaii.